I never expected to find her like this. The apartment smelled faintly of lavender and sunlight, a quiet, domestic scent that made my chest tighten in a way I hadn't anticipated. I had just come in, expecting empty rooms and the hum of the city beyond the window. But there she was, moving through the living room with a grace that felt almost casual, yet deliberate. She didn't notice me at first, brushing a strand of dark hair behind her ear as she adjusted a small stack of books on the coffee table. I froze for a moment, not wanting to announce my presence too loudly, though the truth was I didn't think I could. There was something in the curve of her smile when she finally glanced up, something in the way her eyes lingered on me that made the air between us feel suddenly charged, like static before a storm. She was beautiful, effortlessly so, the kind of beauty that carried weight. The weight of experience, of stories untold, of mornings spent alone and evenings that held promises she might not always have kept. I wanted to speak, but my voice caught. Instead, I just stood there, hands tucked in my pockets, pretending to examine a framed photo on the wall. Her eyes followed me anyway. "You're home early," she said, her voice soft but carrying that faint edge of surprise. She wasn't just talking about the time. I could feel it in the tilt of her head, the slight pause before she continued. Her presence pulled at something I didn't even have words for yet, something dangerous and thrilling. Finished early. I managed, try to sound casual, though my heart felt as if it might betray me. She nodded, eyes dropping to the book she was holding. There was a subtle flicker in her expression. I thought I saw curiosity, maybe amusement, maybe something else I wasn't ready to name. I had learned long ago that with her, the surface was rarely the whole story. I took a step closer, though my mind warned me not to. I could feel her warmth even from a distance, could see the faintest tremor in her fingers as she adjusted the papers in front of her. I wanted to reach out, to bridge the tiny space between us, but instead I let myself linger, pretending to look for something in the corner of the room. "Did you need something?" Her voice was quieter now, almost intimate, and it made my pulse spike in a way that was both exhilarating and terrifying. "I just wanted to see you," I admitted, the words nearly stumbling out of me. My stomach twisted as I watched her reaction. She didn't flinch, didn't move away. She simply smiled, just slightly, a slow curl that seemed to understand something I couldn't yet articulate. The clock ticked softly, but it felt louder than usual, echoing the tension that had quietly stretched between us. Something unspoken hovered in the room, something fragile, magnetic like a spark waiting for air. And then, just as I thought I might finally say the thing I hadn't allowed myself to whisper before, the sound of the doorbell sliced through the quiet. Her eyebrows lifted, that faint smile fading into something more complicated. My throat went dry. We exchanged a glance, quick and loaded, and for the first time, I noticed the slight hitch in her breathing, the way her hand trembled just enough as she set the book down. I didn't know who or what was waiting outside, but in that suspended moment, I realized something undeniable. I wasn't alone anymore, and I might never be again. The doorbell lingered in the quiet, sharp and insistent, but neither of us moved immediately. I could feel her presence behind me, the subtle warmth of her body, even though I stayed still, pretending to decide what to do. "I'll get it," she said finally, voice calm, but with a note I couldn't quite place. I knew her well enough to catch the hesitation, the tiny pause before action that always meant she was weighing something far bigger than a visitor at the door. I stepped back, giving her space, though my eyes never left her. Even from a distance, she radiated control, yet something about her today, maybe it was the soft crease in her brow or the way her fingers lingered a fraction too long on the doorknob, made her feel vulnerable. I wanted to reach out, to steady her, though I knew better. That line between desire and decency had always been fine, razor thin. As she opened the door, I caught the glimpse of her life outside my bubble. the quiet apartment beyond, the faint smell of coffee and early morning errands. I wondered how many mornings she spent like this, alone, carrying the weight of routine, past mistakes, and unspoken needs. We had known each other for months, really, not in a shallow hello, coffee, goodbye way, but deeply, dangerously. I had watched her laugh softly at something I said, noticed the tension in her shoulders when I pushed too far, felt the electricity when our hands brushed by accident. And I knew, if she allowed it, this could be more than flirtation, more than curiosity. It could be everything I didn't even have words for. I thought of her past, the hushed conversations she'd let slip in passing, the mentions of lovers who didn't stay, and the pain that never quite left her eyes. I thought of my own, the awkward mistakes, the naive crushes that left scars I pretended weren't there. Together, we carried all of it, unspoken, into rooms neither of us wanted to leave. There was risk, of course. Everyone outside our little bubble would call it wrong. Age difference, life experience, expectations. The whispers of judgment always hovered nearby, waiting for one misstep to land on us both. And still I felt it, the pull. I stepped closer, drawn as if by gravity, and she didn't pull away. Our proximity was small, almost innocent, a shared space in the middle of an ordinary living room. But my heart slammed in my chest anyway. She looked at me, and I swear, I could see the memories she had tried to bury, moments of tenderness that never found a home, laughter shared with the wrong people, loneliness that settled into the bones. I never realized, I said almost a whisper, how much. I stopped because saying it aloud felt dangerous. She tilted her head, a faint smile teasing the corner of her lips, and without a word, reached out. Her hand brushed mine, light enough to deny the world if anyone noticed, heavy enough to pull every thought from my mind. It was a touch that carried everything we hadn't said. Years of restraint, weeks of longing, the fragile, thrilling tension that made me want to stay and never leave. And in that moment, I understood something irrevocable. I was in too deep that I was still standing there when the door clicked behind her. Her hand lingered in mine for a heartbeat longer than it should have, and my chest felt like it would break if I let go. "Come in," she said softly, almost as if testing herself. I stepped forward, aware of every breath, every pulse. The room felt smaller now, tighter somehow, charged with a quiet electricity that neither of us dared name. We were both aware of it, the dangerous weight of proximity. I wanted to speak, to admit everything boiling inside me, but the words stuck, lodged in my throat. She smiled faintly, the kind of smile that promised understanding without saying anything at all. And then the sound of keys rattling at the door froze us both. Her face shifted subtly, a shadow passing over her eyes. My stomach dropped. "Is this someone coming?" I asked, though the answer was obvious. She swallowed, brushing her fingers nervously along the edge of the table. "My husband. He's early." I didn't expect him until later. The room shrank even more. My heart raced, panic and longing twisting together. I hadn't anticipated this, the real risk. The risk of being caught. The thrill was immediate, visceral, and impossible to ignore. I should go," I muttered, taking a step back, but she didn't move to let me. She seemed frozen, caught between instinct and restraint, just like me. "You don't have to," she whispered. Her voice was low, almost a tremor, betraying the tension she tried to hide. "Just not here, not yet." Her words only made it harder to move, harder to resist. My eyes met hers, and suddenly it felt as though the rest of the world, her husband, the city, every cautionary thought, was gone. There was only this fragile, magnetic moment. I wanted to reach for her again, wanted to close the space between us, but reason screamed at me. The consequences, the scandal, the heartbreak if we were found out, everything pressed against the pull in my chest. We moved together, almost accidentally, instinctively. Her fingers brushed mine once more, a fleeting contact that set my skin on fire. The air between us felt electric, every breath shallow, every heartbeat loud in the sudden silence. I opened my mouth to speak, but she pressed a finger to my lips. "Shoo," she said, barely audible. "Not now." Her eyes held mine, a storm behind calm waters. The danger made her more alive, more real, more intoxicating than I had imagined. I wanted to taste that storm, to give in completely, but my hands froze at my sides, my mind screaming in contradiction. The jangle of keys grew louder. The door was about to open. We stood there, inches apart, connected yet worlds away, suspended in a moment neither of us could fully inhabit. A kiss hovered between us, unclaimed, impossible to ignore. And then, just as the first knock came, her husband's voice called from the hallway, friendly and unaware, shattering the fragile bubble around us. I stepped back, my stomach twisting. Her eyes flickered to mine one last time, a silent promise, a warning, a question. We weren't safe. Not yet. But somehow, I knew we wouldn't be able to stay apart. The apartment was quiet again, but the silence felt heavier this time, like it had absorbed every heartbeat we'd shared in the last hour. I could still feel the ghost of her fingers on mine, the memory of the unspoken kiss hovering just out of reach. I paced slowly, pretending to glance at the bookshelves, but my eyes kept finding her. She was on the couch, knees drawn slightly to her chest, the light from the window tracing the curve of her face in a way that made my stomach twist. Something about her posture, guarded, yet impossibly inviting, pulled me closer against my better judgment. "I shouldn't have come," I muttered, more to myself than to her. The words sounded weak, but my chest felt raw, exposed. She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she shifted, leaning slightly forward, a subtle motion that made my pulse spike. Her lips pressed together, eyes fixed on some point beyond me, but I could feel the tension in her shoulders, the hesitation that told me she was struggling just as much as I was. You don't understand," she said finally, voice low, trembling just enough to betray the control she tried to keep. I can't do this the way I want to." "What way?" I asked, stepping closer despite the warnings in my mind. "You mean us?" My voice was almost a whisper, but I couldn't hide the desperation in it. Her eyes found mine then, sharp and clear. A flash of something, fear, longing, passed across her face. She wanted to look away, but didn't. "Yes," she admitted, almost inaudible. "Us." That single word was a hammer against my chest. I wanted to tell her everything I felt, to throw caution aside, but I stopped myself. Because even as desire surged, so did fear. Fear of what this meant, fear of being wrong, fear of the judgment waiting outside these walls. And then it hit me, jealousy. Subtle, burning, immediate. I hated the thought of anyone else in her world, anyone who had her attention, anyone who had touched her before me. My hands curled into fists at my sides, and for a moment I thought I might shout, demand, confess something reckless. She noticed it too. I could see it in the way her eyes softened, how a shiver ran down her spine, how her breath hitched slightly. She knew, just as I did, that we were teetering on the edge of something irreversible. I started, voice tight, then faltered. The right words didn't exist. The wrong ones could destroy everything. She tilted her head, almost mocking, almost teasing, almost daring me. The tension coiled between us like a live wire. I wanted to close the distance, wanted to taste her lips, wanted to throw away every rule that had kept us apart. But the world outside our bubble still existed, and one wrong move could ruin everything. I reached toward her, hesitant, trembling, my fingers brushing the edge of her hand. She leaned in slightly, and the air between us felt combustible. And then the knock. Hard, insistent, from a door. I froze, heart hammering. Her eyes widened, caught between panic and longing. And just like that, The moment hung there, poised, electric, impossible to ignore. Would we give in, or would we retreat? The knock had faded, but its echo lingered in my chest. I could still feel her near me, her warmth, her hesitation, the way her breath hitched as though the world had narrowed to this tiny, fragile bubble we shared. I took a step back, trying to calm my racing thoughts. Maybe we should, I started, but she cut me off with a shake of her head. No, not yet, she whispered, voice tight. Her eyes darted toward the hallway. My stomach twisted. She was holding something back, something urgent. Before I could ask, her phone buzzed on the table. She glanced at it, and I caught the shadow cross her face, shock, fear, confusion. She froze, unreadable for a second, before quickly hiding it behind a practiced, casual smile. What is it? I asked, stepping closer, but she waved me off. Nothing, she said, too quickly, too sharply. It's nothing important. But I saw it. The message that made her hand tremble, the way her jaw tightened, the rapid inhale before she exhaled. Something or someone had just changed the rules. I reached for her hand, lightly, cautiously. You can tell me. Her gaze flicked to mine, and for a heartbeat I thought she would. Then she pulled away, shaking her head. I can't, she said, voice breaking. Not yet. It's complicated. And then, almost as if to prove the point, the elevator bell chimed in the lobby. A figure emerged, a man, familiar enough that my heart sank before I could even identify him. It was her ex-husband, the one she had spent years trying to move past. Jake, she murmured, a soft warning in her voice. She moved instinctively toward the door, but her hand brushed mine again. A spark, a silent plea, a shared understanding. We were tangled, and no one else could untangle us. I stepped back, mind spinning. Every plan, every rule I'd made for myself evaporated in an instant. The danger of discovery was now real, immediate. Her life, my life, the fragile connection we'd built, it all balanced on a knife edge. She opened the door. His voice was casual, too easy, like he didn't know the storm that had been waiting behind it. Hey, just wanted to drop by, and her eyes flicked to mine, and I saw the hesitation, the guilt, the desire she tried to hide from him. And from me. I wanted to speak, to demand she tell him nothing, to claim her in some small, impossible way. But I didn't, because the look she gave me said it all. Patience, caution, restraint, and maybe longing that was as dangerous as it was undeniable. The room felt smaller, the air heavier. I could feel my pulse in my ears. The electricity of desire mingled with the adrenaline of risk. Every second stretched, taut, and fragile. And in that instant, I realized something terrifying and thrilling. Nothing would ever be simple again. Her hand brushed mine, just a whisper contact, and the world outside didn't exist. For a heartbeat, I thought we might forget everything else and give in. But then he spoke her name, casual, innocent, unaware that our fragile bubble had been shattered. And I knew, deep down, that the next move, her next word, my next choice, would change everything. The apartment was still, almost painfully so, after her ex-husband's casual voice faded down the hallway. I could feel the tension in the air, thick enough to taste. Every breath between us seemed amplified, every movement deliberate. She turned to me then, eyes wide, shimmering with something I couldn't name. Fear, desire, maybe relief, all tangled together. I wanted to reach for her, to erase the minutes we'd spent in suspense. But I stopped myself, unsure if the world would allow it. Jake, she whispered, her voice barely audible, like she was afraid to let it carry. I stepped closer, heart hammering. You don't have to say it, I murmured. But she did. She always did in the end. I can't keep pretending this isn't happening, she said, voice breaking. I don't know how to fix it, how to make it right, but I can't ignore it either. Something in her words made my chest ache. Desire, fear, longing, they all collided, sharp and real. I reached for her hand, feeling her tremble slightly when our fingers met. She didn't pull away. I wanted this, I admitted, voice low, raw. Not just this moment, but everything. You. Us. Even knowing how impossible it is, I've wanted you. Her lips parted, a breath caught in her throat. She laughed softly, bitter and sweet all at once. You're insane, she whispered. Do you have any idea what this means? The risks. I do, I said. And I don't care. Not about the rules, not about judgment. Only about this. You. She looked down at our intertwined hands, then back up at me. Her gaze softened, a vulnerability I hadn't seen before. I'm scared, she admitted, voice trembling. Scared of losing everything, of losing you, of being too late. I closed the distance, fingertips brushing her cheek, tracing the line of her jaw. It's not too late, I said, almost a plea. It's now. It's always been now. Her breath hitched, and the world narrowed until it was just us, just the faint hum of the city outside, the soft light spilling through the curtains, the quickened beat of our hearts. I wanted to kiss her, to claim this fragile, impossible connection, but I paused, sensing the fragile line between choice and surrender. She tilted her head, lips barely parted, eyes glistening, waiting for me to cross it. I could see the conflict written in every micro-expression, the hesitation, the longing, the terror of consequence. And in that moment, I realized we could either step into everything fully exposed or retreat into safety and silence. I don't want to hide anymore, she whispered. Not from you. Not from me. I smiled, a shaky, relieved smile, and brushed my thumb across her hand. Then we don't have to. We stood there, close enough to feel each other's warmth, hearts hammering in perfect unison. No promises. No guarantees. Just understanding. Just us. Outside, the world waited. But inside, for the first time, nothing else mattered. And just like that, we were caught between what had been and what could be, ready to leap or to fall together. The city outside had softened into twilight, the golden light spilling through the windows, painting everything in hues of warmth and quiet promise. We sat on the couch, side by side, still holding hands, letting the silence speak where words had faltered for months. She laughed softly, a sound that had always felt like home to me, and I couldn't help but smile back. It was fragile, cautious, yet real, proof that we had survived the storm of risk, fear, and unspoken longing. I never thought, she began, trailing off, glancing at our entwined fingers. Her voice held both wonder and disbelief, as if she couldn't quite believe this was happening, that we were here, together, without the world tearing us apart. You don't have to finish that sentence, I said gently, brushing a strand of hair from her face. I think I know what you mean. Neither of us expected this, or each other. She nodded, lips twitching into that small, vulnerable smile I had memorized. I've spent so long thinking I was alone, that all of it, every risk, every longing, I had to bury. And now, her gaze met mine, steady and unflinching. Now it feels like maybe none of that matters. I felt the truth of it deep in my chest. The longing, the fear, the jealousy, the secret moments we had stolen, they had all led to this fragile, impossible clarity. None of it was simple, none of it was perfect, but it was ours. I wanted this for a long time, I admitted quietly, and maybe it's crazy, maybe it's reckless, but I can't imagine it any other way. Not without you. Her eyes softened, a flicker of tears glinting in the light. Neither can I, she whispered. We don't know what's next, but I think we can try. And that was enough. Enough to fill the spaces that had been hollow, enough to promise that whatever the world outside demanded, we had chosen each other. We leaned into each other, finally allowing the closeness we had danced around for months. It was tender, imperfect, human, hands brushing, breaths mingling, hearts sinking. No dramatic declarations, no perfect lines. Just us, flawed, vulnerable, and undeniably real. The apartment around us felt alive in a new way, a witness to the small miracle of connection and trust. I knew there would be challenges ahead, judgments, questions, and moments of doubt. But for the first time, I felt like we could face them together, and that was enough. As the light faded, leaving the room bathed in gentle shadows, I realized something. Love wasn't about certainty. It was about courage, about stepping into the unknown, about choosing someone even when the outcome was uncertain. And in that quiet, charged moment, I felt it. Hope, danger, joy, and a deep, enduring longing all at once. We had risked everything and chosen each other. And somehow, that made everything else possible. So I ask you, sitting there in the quiet glow of this story, who would you take a risk for? When is desire worth the fear? And what would you do if the person you could never stop thinking about stood right in front of you, waiting?